harvest, and then Dad driving me down to Red Deer. It seemed like it was a long drive to get there, but I'll never forget him driving me down and lifting the old brown suitcase out of the back of the half-ton truck at the steps of the old Red Deer Arena, and me pulling my hockey bag out and him giving me a couple words of advice, and that was about it.
What were those words of advice?
Well, one of them was, I'm harvesting, and so I don't have time to come to get you, so you better make sure you make the team. That was one of them. It was bigger and faster, and you know, mistakes were magnified, and you know, Mr. Francis was my coach, Emil Francis, when I first turned pro, and he was a great teacher, and you know, what better role model could a person have, and you know, than him, and you paid your dues. Let's put it this way: you got pucks out, you got pucks in, you didn't miss the net. You know, you finished your checks. I wasn't a big man, but I was supposed to be a guy that I always thought I was a good defensive player, and I knew I had to take care of my teammates. So you're fighting guys 220 pounds when you're 175 pounds. So, but the physical part of the game and the defensive part of the game, which is really a team game, caring for your teammates, were first and foremost. And I knew if I did those, I knew I could score. And in my third year, I led the league in goals. And in the next 8 years, there was only one player at my position, you know, had more penalty minutes and scored more goals than I did. So it was, you know, to me that was special. Scoring goals was just part of helping your team win. It was nothing important. First game I ended up dressing in Boston Garden, and an old friend in Viking, a fellow named Clem Laughlin, and he played in the 20s and coached and managed in Chicago, and he was actually even president, I believe, in the National Hockey League for a short term of time during the wars. But Clem was an older fellow that really cared for us boys, and especially myself when I was growing up. And apparently he always told people that I was going to play in the National League, and he was a good friend to me. He was 80 when I was like 6 and 7, and he was in his 70s, and then he ended up dying the night that I played, I believe, my first game. So that was, he told the nurses that night that that I was going to play. So that's, you know, if there's a fond memory, that's what it is. The coach is basically only in charge of 3 things: preparation, conditioning, and discipline. And those 3 words are powerful words, but they cover a lot of areas, but any coach is really responsible for that. But if you really care, you really want to win, you got to get to know your players. And you know, I had players that didn't know the direction they were going in life, and you know, became the greatest players in the game: Brett Hull and Adam Oates and you know, Scott Stevens. And I coached a lot of players that nobody thought would be great players in the game, or might even not play in the National League, and Curtis Joseph. But you made them understand, you know, how good they can be, and to make them good players, most importantly, you got to make them understand who they are, and teach them respect and trust, and so you help those guys do that. It was pretty special when my family and I were inducted in, and it shows it first and foremost that you had a lot of support from your parents and our wives and our children, and because there's a lot of time and dedication, like we're talking about, whether it be with Bentley or playing in St. Louis or coaching where I coached, or there's a lot of sacrifices that a person gives, and you realize that later on in life. You know, your kids don't get to see their grandparents as much as what they should, and you know, basically your wife has got to raise your kids, so you got to realize when you're home, you better be a good husband and a heck of a father. And so being in the Sports Hall of Fame is most importantly important to me, to the rest of my family.